This is Brian Putt. As time goes on, we all learn to do better analysis. We should take that opportunity to share that improved analysis with others. Back in 2017, I did a video on pipeline maintenance. It was pretty rudimentary. And since then, I've learned a lot of new techniques. And I want to share some of those graphics with you today as if you were the decision maker. So this is how you tell a story, because it's important in that sixth spoke of the decision spider to have commitment to action. Unless the decision maker understands why this is a good decision or has the insights to make his own decision based on the information you provided, there will not be that commitment to action. So the objectives of this video are to determine the best pipeline maintenance strategy, considering the possible impact of a pipeline event, and to mitigate those costs. The maintenance spend should be under the budget of 80%. And we want to create graphics that help convey the insights to the decision maker. That's you. So here are those six spokes. So this video is going to focus on a logical reasoning, why we have recommended or suggested a couple of different alternatives, as the case turns out, or and get you to commit to an action. Here is the influence diagram of how the model is put together, and it's very simplified form. So we have the likelihood of failure, but that's impacted by two things. One is, what is the condition of the pipe? Some of these pipes that we may have for gas supply are 60 years old, and they're deteriorated. They need maintenance. Or, being here in California, there's a possibility of earthquake, and that also impacts the likelihood of a failure. Once we have that, we also need to know whether we've mitigated that likelihood of failure by doing something. I'm not saying what that is. And that's impacted by both the mitigation budget. The criteria for being under the budget will be specified as 80%, and some sort of capital efficiency, because this maintenance needs to compete with other possible investments. So once we have all that, we can determine whether the event occurs probabilistically. We can get the total cost of an occurrence, which is uncertain as well. And eventually, we have to include the cost of mitigation. Eventually, we can put the total cost. And from this, we could also get the probability of being over or under the budget. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to have 5 different types of pipelines. Those are residential, high density, commercial, country, highway, and residential too. So as an example of this probability of an event, we have the situation where there's no mitigation and there's no earthquake, 30%, or if there is an earthquake, 60%. If, however, we do mitigation, the chance of an event is only 5%, and with an earthquake, 10%. So a radical reduction in the residential high density. So which to mitigate, given the cost of mitigation, the budget constraint, the chance of being under a budget of $18 million, and the capital efficiency. So the first thing I did is I used multiple experiments in the SIPMath enterprise version to calculate the efficiency of each of these possible mitigations individually. So this shows the no mitigation case, and this shows the 5 different pipelines we have. I arbitrarily, perhaps, established a capital efficiency metric of 0.3, which means I has to have a 0.3 reduction in the total cost to include the mitigation cost for every dollar spent on mitigation. And so that's what generates this threshold, if you will. So these events up here meet the threshold. Please note that this total cost axis is in reverse order. So this is better up here This is worse down here. This is higher mitigation cost and high cost. I then looked at all possible combinations of the pipes. As it turns out, 22 and 14 are the best alternatives. Strategy 3 could be a possibility based on the 80% criteria if we just lowered this red line a little bit. However, why would we want to do that? These two alternatives already have a better budget and they have a lower cost. So this is inferior to these two, clearly. We then want to look at the capital efficiency. So once again, I've got the total costs over here in reverse order, and I've got the mitigation costs. And this is our budget of $18 million. Over here is shown those 14 and 22 that we identified previously. We can see that they are under our budget on an expected value basis. And they also have some of the lowest total cost. 30 would appear to be a reasonable alternative. So let's explore that one a little bit further. None of these others are close to being superior. So let's bring these two charts together. Here's the capital efficiency showing 14 and 22. And here's the possible decision policy showing the 14 and 22 total risks on costs on both of these axes. We wanted to look at 30. So here's 30 up here. It's got a low total cost, but where's 30 over here? 30 has something like only a 25% chance of being under budget. So that's clearly far away from our criteria. So we're going to reject that and continue to focus on 14 and 22. So let's look further at those two alternatives. Here's the total cost of those two alternatives of 14 and 22. 14 is this orange line. It has the lowest cost, and it consists of commercial, country, and highway. That's very nice. However, I can understand how politically you might say, hey, the residents have to vote for me. Maybe I should include some residential improvements as well. So if I looked at 22, it includes residential too. I can't do all 5 of these things. I can also look at the incremental value of moving from one to the other. So the incremental cost including the mitigation, is 1.4. That's the difference between these two here, the total cost, and the cost of the incremental mitigation, dropping the highway and adding residential too. So that certainly meets our criteria of 0.3. So now the question is, what decision do you want to make? Would you go for this orange line that just works on commercial, country, and highway? Or would you go for the commercial, country, and residential too? If you'd like to learn more about this, you can contact probabilitymanagement.org. You can contact me at brian@theputz.com, and I'd be happy to share the Excel model that goes with this. However, be aware that it uses extensively the enterprise version, which costs $500 from probabilitymanagement.org. Most of these analyses could be done with the free version of SIPMath with a little bit of VB. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Be happy to answer them. Thank you for watching.